What does it mean to be the only Black woman currently anchoring a primetime news show right now? That has to be huge.
Well, yeah, thank you very much. First of all, thank you for having me. It's always great to be here with my friends at Telemundo. It's always great. So it was a big night yesterday because we kind of won the booking lottery. We first booked Hillary Clinton. We were like, great, we booked Hillary Clinton. We had these two dynamic mayors from Chicago and from Atlanta. And then Joe Biden came through. We were like, oh, okay, let's change the whole show again and rearrange it again. So it was very busy. It was very hectic trying to fit it all in and make sure everything fit in time. So one of the things that I really want to do is to make sure that I'm opening that door really wide to the voices who aren't always, really proliferating in prime time. And I don't mean just like elected voices, but we're really looking, for real people who are activists and who are on the ground and who are journalists, maybe from a smaller publication, that are actually covering these stories firsthand. So I think one of the ways that we're going to be different is just that we're on this scouting mission to find voices of color who can tell these stories firsthand.
I love that. And that's a lot of the work we're doing here at Pulso News as well with Telemundo, with LatinX voices. And you mentioned it, COVID-19 disproportionately affecting Black and Brown communities. And it's so important to have media representation now. Joy, your own parents are immigrants as well. You've had a passion for covering race issues long before the Black Lives Matter movement, long before all the racial tensions going on this year. And I'm assuming how do you plan to bring all of that into the Reid Out?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the immigration issue is one of those issues that people were passionate about for a minute, and then it kind of went away because other horrors took over. But I think all of these issues are immigration issues, right? I mean, if you look at, for instance, the COVID-19 pandemic, there was a burst of it that really took place in, places like meatpacking plants. People who are first, the must-go-in employees, these essential employees, are disproportionately Black and Brown people, right? The death rates of Latinx and Black people are much, much higher than everyone else, and Indigenous people as well. We're the people who are doing most of the dying and also most of the work to keep the rest of the economy open. So if you're going into a store and you're, at retail, it's mostly Black and Brown people who are serving you. We're on the front lines of this COVID crisis in every way.
Speaking about COVID-19, you have an updated paperback version of your book coming out, The Man Who Sold America, Trump and the Unraveling of the American Story. That's coming out, and you've added the COVID-19 chapter as well as the impeachment chapter. Can you talk about why you chose to do that and what your expectations are for the election, which is coming up very soon?
Yeah, and I think 104 days or something like that. I mean, look, though, when I first wrote on The Man Who Sold America, we ended it right. I went as far as I could through the Mueller report. I kept writing, my poor editors. I was like, I'm going to keep writing to the last minute to get as much of this content in. But we ended right before impeachment happened. And I really felt strongly that if we were going to come out with a paperback version of the book, I wanted to reflect the updated reality, which is even crazier than what was happening during impeachment. Impeachment ends in February. 1 month later, we were in the heart of the COVID crisis. And Trump has handled it in the most shocking way I think any president since Woodrow Wilson has handled a health crisis. We now have more people dead from coronavirus than died fighting World War I, and we're approaching World War II numbers. That's shocking. This will be one of the highest single issue death tolls in American history by the time that this is over. And it has to be a part of every narrative. So I wanted to make sure that was a part of the new narrative for the book.
Excellent. Switching gears now back to Biden, because you had him on your show last night and you kind of put him on the hot seat right off the bat.
Are you committed to naming a Black woman as your vice presidential running mate?
I am not committed to naming any but the people I've named, and among them there are 4 Black women.
So what did you think about his response on the running mate question?
I'm puzzled a little bit by the Biden campaign strategy when it comes to a running mate, right? The Occam's razor, if you're talking about picking a running mate as casting, right? So if you're casting like a movie of your presidency, there's obvious choices of who to cast, right? If you're doing The Watchmen, you've got to cast Regina King. Like, who else would you possibly put in that role? In the case of Joe Biden, the obvious casting is a Black woman. Black women are the core of the support of the Democratic Party. The vice presidency is not an incentive, it's a reward. And if it's a reward and you reward your strongest constituency, they will turn out for you in the kind of numbers that will get you into the White House. You can help yourself with your vice president, you can neutralize and get nothing, or you can hurt yourself. So I'm interested to see what he winds up doing, which of those 3 things.
throughout your career, you've often come to the defense of immigrant communities, like we just talked about. And in 2018, you came to the defense of an underage Latinx teenager on social media after seeing a picture which looked like he was being attacked by somebody else. It turned out to not be the case, and you've since apologized. And I know you can't necessarily go into detail, but I want to ask you, as a journalist, especially in today's age, where everybody's watching and you have the cancel culture, how do you draw that line where you want to stand up for what is right and you know what's right, but you also have to be careful?
As a Black person, as a brown person, you can't not see a young Black or brown kid in a situation that looks like they're being mistreated and not have a visceral reaction to it. I think any mother, I think any person with a heart would see that young boy and think, oh my God, here he is putting himself out there. He's a kid, and I think that visceral reaction is natural for anyone. You could see that it wasn't just me. It was, millions of people saw that kid and thought, oh my God, he's in a situation that he shouldn't be placed in as a child. And so I think that is just a natural reaction. I don't think it's a journalist versus a not journalist question. But I think, yes, with cancel culture, as we call it, all cancel culture is that people, because of social media, have the ability to call out racism, to call out sexism, to call out all the isms that used to be privately experienced as hell by communities of color, by women, by marginalized communities. Now everyone can see it. If somebody is trying to call the cops on you because you're with your kids in the park, you can film it. And people are calling that cancel culture, but I don't know if that's the right word for it. The word for it is that people now can see what's happening. A lot of the things that Black and brown communities experience, people don't believe us. When we say, I've been treated in a way that is racist. People roll their eyes and say that didn't happen. You're just overreacting. It's now documentable. And so I think that's what's changed in our culture. And people get uncomfortable with it and angry about it because it's much more comfortable when you can do it in secret. And so I think, yes, you have to be very careful that you know what the situation is that you're calling out. But I think the visceral reaction that we have to injustice is actually a good sign for our culture. It's a good sign that multicultural America is going to work, because people across racial communities actually care when they see something happening to somebody who doesn't look like them.
Thank you so much for chatting with us. We'll be watching tonight, and we wish you all the success and the best in your new show. We'll be watching. We're family, so we're definitely rooting for you.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate you guys. Thanks so much.